My name is Angela.
My name is Nicole.
And welcome to the Ominous Stitch podcast. Hello, Stitchers.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Ominous Stitch podcast.
And what episode is this?
This is episode 101.
Oh.
Did you forget?
Guys, I'm going back in time.
Oh, I love it. We were looking at each other this morning like, I'm tired. I'm tired too. It's summertime. It is full summertime.
My brain is not working.
Kids are home
sorry.
from school. We've got like fog going on our brains. But
I woke up really early. I'm sorry, everybody.
that's okay. That's okay.
Hey, but it's 101.
It is 101.
We're past 100.
We're past 100.
Holy
We
cow.
are still here.
We were just talking about like, wow, 100 episodes.
I can't believe we've done that. Like,
we're
that's
awesome.
This is a big accomplishment.
This is
It's
awesome. I'm so proud of us.
Cool. Yay, us.
And thank you for listening to us, everybody.
Yeah, if you guys have listened to 101 episodes so far, you guys deserve kudos too, because that is commitment. That is amazing.
We're so happy to have you.
Yay. I can't believe you still want to listen to us. It's exciting. No, we're glad that you're here. We are
Yes.
still on our Ripper tide here.
yeah.
Jack the Ripper. We're learning about more victims today.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's-
We only did two last
We
time.
only
There's
did two
so
of the
much.
5, and then even past that, there's more from the Whitechapel murders, as I mentioned. So
Yeah, there's more, but they have the canonical 5.
Yes.
So the 5 that are very consistent with each other that they know were done by
the same
the
person.
same person.
Correct.
And then other ones could have been, but not quite right.
Yes.
And so they could have been copycats and
Yeah. So what I'm thinking, and you'll hear this eventually. So today we're going to go over, as Angela said, the remaining victims, and then part 3 we're going to go into suspects, which I couldn't believe how many there are.
Yeah, you dug up way more than I thought there were. I was like, there's like 8.
No,
maybe
there's
10.
like
There's
over like almost 20, maybe more.
Oh my
Because there's
goodness.
just so many different theories because nobody knows. That's the craziest. This is the craziest mystery, that
Yeah.
one of the most unsolved, like well-known unsolved mysteries.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
exciting.
And then I'm thinking for our patrons.
Oh yeah, we were talking about this. Like, how do we wrap this up? And this is a good idea. So we're gonna wrap it up with. Go ahead.
So I think for a patron episode, we'll complete the Whitechapel murders. We'll go into detail about that and the remaining suspects because I didn't touch up on everybody. So
Okay.
there we go.
Yay.
So they'll be fun.
Yep.
Okay. But we have to start with,
What's got you in stitches this week, Nicole?
so happy belated Father's Day, everybody.
Happy belated Father's Day.
All those daddies out there.
Yay.
Yeah. So we had a really nice weekend.
Yeah, what'd you guys do?
I tell you all the time.
Disc
Hubs
golf?
loves disc golf. I'm sure you all know now. That's his big, insane hobby that he loves to do almost daily. But yeah, it was really fun. It was really hot.
Yeah,
That Saturday,
it was hot this
it was
weekend.
super, super hot. But yeah, we got out to Thousand Oaks and we had fun out there. There's a really cool park out there. And then at that same time, there was this big festival of Touch-a-Trucks.
I love Touch a Truck.
Yes.
That's so fun. We did that with the kids when they were little because my son was very fascinated with trucks. But of course, when we get there and the trucks are so big, he got so intimidated. He was like,
Oh, cutie.
Because he was little.
Yeah. And we finished and we came out in the like early morning. It was still like 10ish, almost 11. And there were little kids everywhere. It was the
Oh,
cutest thing. They
that's so
had like
cute.
a farm truck and the fire trucks and police trucks. And there was like tons of them. But the best part about it was there was a Kona ice truck.
Oh, nice. Perfect day.
Perfect day. And there was nobody in line when we got there.
How is that even possible?
Seriously. I don't know.
That's insane. They must have all gotten their Kona ice before you guys got there.
Well, it's because like I said, we got there early because it was so hot. And so when we were finishing up, I think the Touch a Truck festival was just starting. Yeah.
got
So
it.
we were like, yeah, let's get some Kona ice. And it was awesome. And I was so happy. And the kids were happy. Everybody was happy. So
Yay.
it
That's
was a good
awesome.
day. Yeah.
Yay.
And I mean, we just watched some movies later on, and then we did the same thing the next day and came home, and the kids were happy and everybody was happy. So
Yay, kumbaya. That's awesome.
kumbaya. I was telling, maybe I was telling you, but there's this shoe brand called Hey Dudes. Have you heard of them?
No.
So Hey Dudes, I think the reason why it's called that was because of the dude from
Oh, yeah.
yes, Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
And so these really cute shoes for guys, they're like loafers almost.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt has like, I think 7 or 8 pairs.
Oh, really?
He
Are
loves
they
them.
like super comfortable?
Yes. So I got him a pair for
Oh, that's
Father's
nice.
Day. And then TikTok had this gift or this deal for this. It's called Coldest. It's a water bottle,
Oh.
but it's supposed to keep your water bottle cold for 36 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he bought a Stanley for Christmas thinking it was the best thing ever because that's what was the
Yeah,
the
that
big
was the thing. Yeah.
Yes. But honestly, they don't keep your water cold enough. Like the ice melts fast. Yeah, I have one too. It's not that great. This Coldest, look at us. I'm plugging in some more. We should get paid.
I know.
Dang
We
it.
need to get an endorsement.
Yes, but the Coldest water bottle, if you find it on TikTok shop for a sale, get it because it is
It
nice.
works.
Yeah.
It does well.
Hubs loves it. It comes with 3 different like covers so you can like whatever you like.
Switch it up, like if you
Yes.
want the straw or if you just want the pop top. Or,
exactly.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the coolest thing, which he was asking about, like, why don't people have this? It's a ice blocker. So if you're drinking it like this, like you're up and down.
oh, the ice doesn't hit you in the face?
Yes, it
that's
stays
awesome.
because there's a little like triangular ice blocker in there. It's cool. So
Oh, that's brilliant.
he was very happy about that.
Oh, yay.
So it was a good Father's Day.
That's good.
Yeah.
Our Father's Day was a hot one.
Yeah. So what
So-
was your Father's Day?
So we went to my in-laws because it was Father's Day and then also it was my father-in-law's birthday. So we were celebrating his birthday and
Nice.
Father's Day. And so we left here and drove up to go to they live in a cabin in the woods.
I love that.
Cabin in the woods.
That's not ominous at all.
No, I know. That's why I said it that way. But in order to get there, you have to drive through this little bitty town called Gorman.
That's right.
So if you guys don't know, if you haven't heard about Gorman, there is a big wildfire that is still happening. And
It's still
yeah,
happening?
it's still happening.
Holy cow.
In Gorman, and it started in Gorman and on Saturday over the weekend, and it quickly grew. Last I heard, it was 16,000 acres.
Whoa.
And they had like about 8% containment. So
oh my gosh.
yeah.
I didn't know it was that bad.
yeah. Oh, it's huge.
Well, I know that I was telling Angela we had ash on our car and we're like, what, 30 miles away maybe from you guys? Not even.
The ash cloud came all the way to us too.
Oh,
So and we're about like an hour away from
wow. So it's that big.
yeah.
That's
So the
scary.
ash cloud was insane. We thought because there was another fire that popped up over the weekend closer to us, and so we thought we were getting ash from that. So we packed go bags and we were ready, to like if
yeah.
we had to escape. But I was like,
Flee.
where are we going to go? Because where we usually go is to my in-laws'
Where
cabin, where there's
they're on
another
fire.
fire. Yeah, but we did drive past it to get to my in-laws. The road up there was still open.
Oh, good.
But it was a fantastic, not in a good way, sight, if that makes sense. It was very
It's
dramatic.
amazing in a scarier way. Yeah.
Yes, it was
Okay.
very dramatic. So it was just, tons of smoke everywhere.
Right.
You could definitely see the flames on the hillside. And if you've ever driven past a wildfire, it's a very awe-inspiring, impressive thing. And there were tons of fire trucks lining up and down there's a road that goes by it. I forget what the road's called, but there's a road that all these fire trucks were lined up on. And they were protecting, actually it was a fire station that they were protecting. We actively saw the fire coming down and threatening the fire station and them like fighting it back.
Oh my gosh.
Right. It was really intense.
Yeah.
And there's a little bitty lake called Pyramid Lake that the fire was moving toward and kind of surrounding.
That's scary.
Right. But just to see the way that the smoke and the ash was coming over the fire and the way, or over the water, and the way that the lighting looked on that, it was really it's like awe-inspiring. If that's, I mean, it's weird, but it was just like the colors that it all made. You're just like, whoa,
That's crazy.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then seeing all the helicopters come through with their water drops, and how they were lining up to drop the water, and how they were dropping the pink fire retardant all over the hillsides and stuff. Just actively watching them battle the fire as you're driving past it is like,
oh gosh,
it's a crazy thing
Yeah.
to behold and to,
I can't.
kind of be
No,
a
I
part of.
remember seeing things like that when the fires were near our house too,
Yeah.
but not probably to the extent that you saw.
Yeah,
which
it's
is
a crazy thing
Yeah.
to see. I mean, I've lived, here longer than in Southern California, longer than I have lived anywhere else in my life, and I've definitely seen my fair share of fires. I remember one time I was in college, and I was living in Woodland Hills, so close to where you live.
Yeah.
And I remember coming over the 405 and heading towards the valley, and there was a rim of fire just going around the upper part of the valley. So it was,
Oh gosh.
yeah, and you could see it because it was dark. I was at an opera, and so I was coming home in the dark. So it was all dark, but you saw this rim of orange circling the valley, and it stretched from like Topanga Canyon
Oh, that's scary.
all the way over to like Porter Ranch, all the way through Porter Ranch. It was crazy.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
That's insane.
that was a crazy fire to see. I've driven through where there's fire on both sides of the freeway, and no one's like caught it yet. Wildfire season is nuts here. There was on I think it was Sunday night, we got an alert on our phone because we have a bunch of apps that like let you know when the fires are coming and where they are.
Yeah.
And so we had an alert on our phone saying that there was a fire just like at the bottom of our neighborhood here.
Oh
and so we're like,
no.
oh no.
Yeah.
And so we still have our go bags packed and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
And it was right after we put the kids to bed, but
gosh.
it wound up being nothing.
Oh,
But,
good. Okay.
man, the fire department here
They're on their
Southern
toes.
California, all the fire departments here are just like, it's insane. We've been evacuated. Oh, like I didn't even talk about the biggest fire that actually threatened us when we lived at the old house.
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
We had to evacuate. It was right after we got Rosie too.
Oh.
And there was a big fire that was coming down the hillside. That was all protected nature preserve. So, you can't build anything up there. That's the point. And so when the fire was coming down over that, my old neighborhood butted up right against it. Mm-hmm. And our house was on the news. Like, I'm like, that's our house.
Oh,
That's
gosh.
the fire. You can see them. And then at that point, my husband was like, okay, yeah, let's go. So at that
When
point,
you see your house on the news.
right. When you see your house on the news in the same frame as the fire, you're like, oh, we should probably leave.
Time.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, like, it's just such a crazy thing to witness, and it's beautiful. It's scary. It invokes a lot of dramatic feelings in you.
Oh, of course.
So it's a pretty cool thing to see. But we did. Other than that, we did enjoy Father's Day quite a bit. It was a lot of fun getting together with my husband's family. They're always a good time.
Good.
And we ate a lot of ribs and and it was nice. It was good to get out of the house, even though we had to drive through some fire to get there.
Hi, Rosie.
I know Rosie is all. I know she grabbed Nicole's arm and pulled her down so she could give her lots of kisses.
So sweet. She's like, where'd my pets go?
Yeah.
She's like nestled between us. It's very sweet.
Oh my gosh. This dog never gets attention. Never.
It's like my dog. My dog acts like he's starved for anything.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Oh, Rosie. So now that we're done talking about fires, let's talk about the hot episode we have coming your way. Like that
nice transition. You rock.
I'm going to give a little spoiler alert. I may have had to cut that because I said it wrong the first time.
Because we're good with words in the morning.
Yeah, I cannot word. Oh, that's nothing new though. I'm only on coffee number 1. Wait till I get to like 5 or 6 today.
Yeah.
No, that's too many. I can't do 5 or 6. That hurts my tummy.
You know what's crazy is when I have multiple coffees, I actually get tired.
Mm-hmm. You hit that crash.
Yeah. It's weird. It's like doesn't do anything.
Lately, I've been doing just one.
Yeah.
That's it. Just one a day.
One is good for me too. And then I'll have like a Diet Coke
and then I
in the middle of the day
do my
me.
run and I, do my little workout. So I've been doing really well with that. I'm being consistent with my workouts. We're all doing good with that.
Good job.
Yeah. So in case anybody who's keeping score, I talked about how we were doing the run challenge. Everyone's doing it. Everybody's
doing it.
Mm-hmm. We're 6 weeks in and everyone's still like on it and working on it. So
good job.
It's exciting. Yay.
You're awesome.
Yay. That's still not transitioning to the episode. So we need to get into it because I know we have a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah. So this might be a long one, just like the third one will be too. So
yeah.
Bear with us.
So before we dive into more Jack the Ripper content, I do have to get stitching for just a couple seconds here. It'll be really quick because I'm going to continue with the vest. I said I was going to make it a 3-parter like the Jack the Ripper. So we're going to continue on with that. So let's get stitching.
Yeah.
Okay, Stitchers. So we are diving back into that houndstooth vest that I started last week. And last week I talked about how to do the houndstooth pattern and how stupidly simple it is and how it is a stitch we already do. Seed stitch. Yes.
I remember.
Nicole, yay.
I could do this.
Yes. So I finished the back panel. And I'm like really proud of myself for doing it. Although I may have made it a little bit narrow, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. It works.
It's really cute.
Yeah. And it looks like houndstoothing, right? It's pretty
totally
neat. And what I find fascinating is one side is blacker and one side is whiter.
Did you say that on the podcast last time?
I don't know if I did.
Okay.
I may have.
But it's cool because, you can like change it up.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
I love that. I wonder, can you do that when you're finished? Oh, no, because you can turn it inside out, right? And it could be one side.
Well, maybe the stitching.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Stitching goes on the inside.
Which side are you going to pick then?
I think I'll have the blacker side out and the whiter side in.
Yeah. I like that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's how we'll do it.
Perfect.
But I just find that very interesting.
That's so cool.
But now that I finished the back panel, I'm working on the front panel. Mm-hmm. So today I wanted to talk about how to make a V-neck because I was like, how do you do a V-neck?
Yeah, I'm so curious.
Yeah. It's so simple and it's like much when I finish explaining it, it's going to be like a duh. And those of you who already know how to do V-necks, you're like, duh. But me, I'm like, how do you like make the row? Yeah. How do you keep going across the row? Like there's a big gap there.
Exactly.
Like, what do? You make each side individually.
Duh.
So following the tutorial that I was talking about last week, and it's, again, let me give that to you real quick. This is her name. So it's called I Crocheted a Houndstooth Vest Pattern Walkthrough. And it's by Cherilyn, I think that's how we said it, right?
Yeah.
Cherilyn Crochet.
Yep.
Cherilyn Crochet. And so I'm about 13 minutes in. That's where she starts talking about how to do the V-neck. Basically, once she builds the bottom of the panel before she starts the decrease. So on the first decrease row, she will mark the center stitch, and the center stitch is where you're going to start your V from.
Duh, yes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to do one side of the V, then the other side of the V. And what she does to get the right width of the V and the width for the shoulders, and she measured it out. So if you aren't doing her exact stitch pattern, it might be a little bit different. But she does a single decrease every other row.
Okay.
So she'll do her normal when she goes in for the decrease for the arm. She goes in 4 stitches and then she does a decrease 4 together. Mm-hmm. And then she'll keep doing the seed stitch till she gets to the center marker. And then the 2 stitches, including the center marker, before she hits it, she'll do a single decrease there.
Got it.
And then change colors, and then don't do a decrease after she changes colors.
Because you want to keep it even.
Right, because you want to keep it even.
Yeah.
And then she'll do the decrease that she does in the armhole, which is another 4 together once she gets to the armhole. Right, so you're keeping the same armhole decrease. And then you're working one side of the V by decreasing every other row until you get the width of the shoulder that you want. And then you just go straight up.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So simple.
I love it.
And then you do the same thing on the other side.
Yeah. Yay.
All these tails that you're going to have left over.
So many, right?
You're going to have a lot of tails left over. We'll talk about what you do with those
good.
next week.
Yeah.
When we talk about the ribbing.
Yeah.
Because it's all going to get hidden in the ribbing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You probably just pull it through, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
Okay. I won't spoil it.
But yeah, that's it. That's how you do a V.
I love it.
How simple is that?
Oh, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, because it always fascinated me. Like, how do you do a V?
Right.
Because I've always wanted to do that. Yeah, right.
You did a sweater, but your sweater went all the way to the neck.
Yes. Yeah. My sweater was like just
a regular
normal collar. Yeah. So, but I'm like, how do you do a V? That's how you do a V. And it's
I love it.
Simple. Because in my brain, I was like, how do you drop that many stitches and continue on with the row?
Yeah. And you're like, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, maybe you just kind of hide it if you keep going.
Yeah. Like,
trying to be creative.
You don't.
No.
You don't. You just work each side separately and then you make your decreases accordingly.
So cool.
Duh. This is how smart I am. I'm like, I don't know how to sew. I don't know how to make garments, but I'm learning.
Yes.
So
that's my next goal is to get a sewing machine.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I need to learn because I've been doing all my stitches. Like I'm making a lot of things, which is a surprise for you.
Oh, but you want to do lining in them?
Yeah. Like, or just like closing things up and I'm doing it all by hand.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the most tedious thing. I hate it.
Yeah. I've seen people when they're making a granny square thing, how they'll sew the granny squares together.
That's so smart, I think. But even like, cause I'm using I'm combining fabric with crochet now.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want a sewing machine to get that done. Yeah.
Because it's going to be so much faster. But I'm so fascinated because how does it work? Like I watch people do it and I'm like, how does that work? I'm so confused.
How do you do it?
How do you do it? My mom knows how to use one. My mother-in-law knows how to use one. My sister-in-law knows how to use one. So
yeah, my mother-in-law knows how to use the sewing machine. My mom knows how to use the sewing machine. My sister, Becca. Hi, Becca.
Hey, Becca.
1 year she wanted a sewing machine and then she got one. This is when we were younger. So like teenagers, like very young teenagers. And she got a sewing machine for Christmas, but I think she wanted it over the summertime and then she got it for Christmas. And then she was mad because she didn't want to sew anymore.
She got over it. Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, that was funny.
Nice.
But now I think we both were like, gosh, I wish I knew how to sew because I don't know how to sew. My mom used to make us like costumes and make us stuff all the time. And I'm like, I don't know how to sew.
I don't know how to sew either.
Yeah. My youngest wants to learn how to sew. She's been asking for a sewing machine. And I'm like, I can't teach you. I don't know how to do it.
Right.
So that's a new thing. We've got to learn how to sew.
It's my resolution.
Yeah. My mom was a quilter. So she used to make beautiful quilts. I have some over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah,
well, maybe that'll be both our goal. We'll have sewing machine time.
Sewing machine time.
So we can combine everything.
That's still stitching.
Yes. It's all fabric art still.
Yeah.
So we'll get there one day.
Oh, we'll get there. Anyway, that's it for stitch time.
Thank
you. We have so much to cover.
We do.
So let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah.
It is story time.
Right, we descend back in Whitechapel, and as you recall from the last episode, we covered the second murder of Annie Chapman, and now we're going on to the third victim. And this one has a twist because
I like twists.
Yes, it's believed he was almost caught in the act on this one.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
So let's go back to the beginning of Elizabeth Gustaf's daughter. Sure.
Gustaf's daughter.
Thank you. Sweden. So she was born in November 27th, 1843 in a rural village of Sweden. Her and her family lived in a village farm where the children were expected to perform daily chores. When she was 16, she went to Gothenburg in search of employment and picked up a couple jobs as a domestic worker / servant. But within a couple years, there are police records indicating she worked as a prostitute and treated twice for venereal disease. So she started pretty early. Yeah. Elizabeth was roughly 5 feet 5 inches, and because of her height, most females back then were roughly only 5 feet at the time. She was given the nickname Long Liz. So 5'5".
5'5".
5'5". How tall are you?
5'7".
Yeah.
So I'm
you'd be
giant.
very tall back then. I'd be pretty tall. I'm 5'4". I guess I'd be tall then too. Liz had curly, dark brown hair, light gray eyes, and a pale complexion. This is a picture of her when she was really young.
Hi, Lizzie.
Yeah. February 1866, Elizabeth moved to London for unknown reasons and thought to have been able to do this from an inheritance upon her mother's death. March of 1869, Elizabeth married John Thomas Stride, a ship's carpenter and 22 years her senior.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a little bit older than her. They settled in East London, operating a coffee shop, and John continued his trade as a carpenter. By 1874, the couple separated but continued to live together and were on and off again until roughly 1882. And by then, she moved into one of several doss houses on Flower and Dean Street in Whitechapel. October of 1884, John Stride passed away from TB. At this point, she was receiving occasional charitable assistance from the Church of Sweden in London. And then in 1885, she started living with most of the time dock laborer Michael Kidney on Devonshire Street. They were constantly fighting, so they were very on and off, to the point in 1887 she filed a formal assault charge against Kidney, but she failed to show up in court and it was dismissed. Yeah. For work, Elizabeth mostly was unfavorable, but occasionally earned income from sewing and house cleaning. She was described as having a calm temperament, but like the last two victims, she was known to drink heavily. She appeared 8 times before the Thames Magistrates Court for both drunk and disorderly conduct and use of obscene language. Yeah.
Oh,
she's a little drinker. September 29th of 1888. Kidney and Stride got into another quarrel that sent her staying the night at 32 Flower and Dean Street. She had cleaned 2 rooms in her lodging house, and that helped paid, and she was paid 6 pence to stay the night. She was wearing a black jacket and skirt and a black crepe bonnet. Around 6:30 p.m., she and fellow resident Elizabeth Tanner stopped into the Queen's Head pub on Commercial Street, and soon Stride returned alone to the lodging house. It is assumed she went out to work the streets that evening, and later a man named Jay Best spotted Stride on the sidewalk with a short man with a dark mustache wearing a billycock hat, a morning suit and coat, very respectably dressed. But he was hugging and kissing her, really going at Stride. Best lightheartedly called out to the couple, "Watch out, there's Leather Apron getting round you."
That's what they were calling him at
yes.
the time, because they found that bit of leather.
Well, I will get into Leather Apron in part 3.
Okay.
And why Leather Apron was scary sounding.
Butcher.
Yeah. So the media, that's what the media did call him before Jack the Ripper. But the heckling caused Elizabeth and her guide to take off down the street for more privacy. This was approximately at 11 p.m. Around 11:45 p.m., laborer William Marshall saw Stride with a man wearing a peaked cap, black coat, and dark trousers opposite of 58 Burner Street. He overheard the man kissing Stride state, "You would say anything but your prayers."
What?
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to say.
It's a very weird thing to say. I don't know. I don't know. And P.C. William Smith also spotted the couple on his nightly rounds as they were standing opposite the International Working Men's Educational Club at 40 Burner Street in Whitechapel. He could see the man holding a newspaper-wrapped parcel about 6 inches high and 18 inches long, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and he kept on his path. The last person to see Elizabeth Stride alive was Israel Schwartz. He later reported that he saw a man stop and speak to Elizabeth, but could not identify him. They were on Burner Street, and he was taking a midnight stroll through Whitechapel. He watched the man pull the woman into the street, turn her around, and threw her onto the sidewalk.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Schwartz heard the woman scream 3 times, but when he saw a second man lighting a cigarette next to the shuffle, he ran away in fear of trouble afoot. Schwartz said the first man was about 30 years old with dark hair and a small mustache. He was dressed in an overcoat and an old black felt hat with a wide brim. At 1 a.m. on Sunday, September 30th, Louis Deemschutz, steward of the International Working Men's Education Club, was driving into the poorly lit yard with his horse and two-wheeled cart when his horse... Note, this yard was more of a very narrow passageway where the cart barely fit through. Okay, so it's tight. There's no way to get out. Okay.
Right.
I want to point that out. The horse abruptly veered to the left to avoid a bundle on the ground and nearly rammed itself into the wall. Later, he described it as a dark object lying on the ground, but Deemschutz tried to lift the object with his whip handle from his cart, but couldn't. So he departed the cart for further inspection. He lit a match and instantly saw a prone body with blood oozing onto the ground.
Oh, no.
He ran inside the club to check that his wife was safe, and seeing that she was okay, he told the men inside, "There's a woman lying in the yard, but I cannot say whether she is drunk or dead." After inspecting the body again with the other men, they ran to get help. Stride's neck was oozing blood from a single knife wound, and although her hands were cold to the touch, other sections of her body were still warm, which means she was killed right before Deemschutz arrived on the scene. Some people were interviewed that left the Working Men's Educational Club around 12:30 a.m. and 12:50 a.m., and they noticed nothing out of the ordinary. Do you hear that? 12:30 and 12:50 a.m.
Nothing.
And he came in at 1 a.m. 10 minutes.
Maybe they just didn't notice.
Maybe, but
it was a
it is
small,
really
narrow
dark.
passage. Yeah.
But it's hard to get in and out. So on the scene was Dr. Frederick William Blackwell, followed by police surgeon Dr. George Phillips. The postmortem documents state that the body and face were warm, but the hands were cold, and the legs were quite warm. She had a silk handkerchief around her neck, and it was slightly torn, which he believed was cut. The throat was deeply gashed, and there was an abrasion of the skin about 1¼ inches in diameter, stained with blood under her right brow. Dr. Phillips also noted that over both shoulders, especially the right, and under the collarbone in front of the chest, there was a bluish discoloration, and he noted he'd watched and seen on 2 occasions since previous Ripper victim. So there was a commonality of that area.
Yeah.
The cut on Stride's neck was 6 inches in length. The cut was clean and deviated a little downwards. Dr. Blackwell noted the cut went into several vessels on the left side and cut the windpipe completely in two. Blood was running down in the gutter into the drain. And the incision was so deep that her head was barely attached to her body.
Yeah, that's like the other ones.
Yep.
It's like almost clean.
Yep. Blackwell believed that Stride's murderer may have pulled her backwards onto the ground by her neckerchief before cutting her throat, and Phillips concurred, believing she was lying on her back when the murderer swiftly slashed her neck from left to right, indicating the killer as right-handed. Bruising on the chest suggested she was pinned to the ground prior to being cut. Modern forensics believes that Long Liz could have been strangled to death before being cut, even though there was not much indication of this. They chalk this up to RCA, reflex cardiac arrest. This happens when the sudden intense pressure on the critical arteries in the neck stop blood flow to the brain, which can occur in a matter of seconds, and there are no indications of it except a slightly pale face. Laborer Best, who had seen Stride earlier that evening, was called in to identify her body, and he said Stride's face looked the same but paler. So this means that that strangulation most likely did happen right before it.
Okay, so that's like it's the same.
The same MO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strangle and then slash.
Yeah. And that's her face.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Lizzie.
After the autopsy, doctors concluded that Long Liz did not have any ounce of alcohol in her system, very different than the previous victims.
Ooh.
Yeah. People were interrogated around the area, including Mrs. Fanny Mortimer, who lived 2 doors away from the club. She had stood in Burner Street to listen to the communal singing roughly at the same time Stride was being murdered, but she hadn't seen anyone entering the yard or heard anything amiss.
Wow.
Yeah. On October 19th, Chief Inspector Swanson reported that 80,000 leaflets were distributed asking for any information about the murder, and 2,000 lodgers in Whitechapel were investigated. It's crazy. So this is where her body was.
2,000 people.
So that's the narrow passage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's a drawing of it. It's hard to see, but
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very narrow.
Yeah.
Like you would see
Someone would have. Yeah, it's hard to get out of there. So,
But 2,000 people?
yeah, we're asked about it. Wow. Now, I'm sure you've connected the dots by now that Strides was a very different victim because even though she was nearly decapitated, she was not mutilated.
Right.
The theory is that Jack the Ripper was nearly caught when Deebshuts discovered Stride's body. Remember, it's pitch black, so he could have easily escaped. So he could have even been in that alley
the whole time.
The whole time. And then when he ran to get help, he could have escaped.
Yeah.
Creepy,
when
right?
he ran to go, my favorite part is he ran in to check on his wife.
Yes.
It's like,
Good,
oh my gosh, are
man.
you okay?
Yeah. Now, the fourth victim was taken roughly an hour later after Strides. An hour.
Oh my gosh.
Just an hour.
I think because he didn't finish that one, he needed to finish.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's like she didn't count.
No. So it was quick and he got caught almost. And he's like, let me go finish this off somewhere else. Yeah, sad. Catherine Eddowes, or Kate, was born April 14th, 1842 in Graiseley Green, Wolverhampton, 6th out of 12 kids. A lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids.
Soon after her birth, her family moved to London. When Kate was only 15, both her parents were passed away, and she and 3 of her siblings were sent to a Bermondsey workhouse as orphans. They attended a local industrial school to teach them a trade. Kate then secured a job as a tin plate stamper while still going to Dowgate Charity School. Kate bounced around soon after. She was fired for possibly stealing, living with an uncle, then a grandfather. While in Birmingham, she met former soldier Thomas Conway and had 2 children. Records aren't clear if they were married, but soon she referred to herself as Kate Conway. She even had Conway's initials, TC, crudely tattooed in blue ink on her left forearm.
Huh.
In 18
Sorry, that was funny.
It is. I did throw that in there because I'll talk about it later. In 1868, their family moved to London where she had another child. Eddowes, like the other ladies, took to drinking, and this was stress on the family because Thomas was a teetotaler. Remember what that is?
Yeah, no drinking.
No drinking. Late 1870s, their fights became physical, with Kate coming out of it with black eyes and bruises on her face.
Oh, Kate.
Kate was roughly 5 feet tall, slim, with dark, wavy auburn hair and hazel eyes. Friends described her as a very jolly woman, always singing, and an intelligent and scholarly individual, but possessed of a fierce temper. By 1880, Thomas Conway and Kate lived in Chelsea with their 2 younger children. The eldest moved away at this point. And then in the same year, Catherine up and left Thomas. Kate left Thomas.
Yeah.
By 1881, she was living with a lad named John Kelly, a fruit salesman. They met when both were living in a doss house at 55 Flower and Dean Street. At some point, she was known to acquaintances as Kate Kelly. Apparently, Kate didn't drink as much, but she was charged for being drunk and disorderly in September of 1881. For work, Kate would perform domestic work such as sewing and cleaning for the Jewish community nearby, and occasionally was unfavorable to pay her daily rent. And by the mid-1880s, her and Kelly earned money in the summers by hop picking in Kent. When times got tough, which they did a lot, Kate would try to lean on her sisters or her daughter for money, but a lot of the time they'd turn her down and she'd end up sleeping in the front room of 26 Dorset Street, also known to locals as the Shed. That doesn't sound pleasant.
No.
Here's a drawing of her.
Hi, Kate.
There's Kate. Late September of 1888, Kate and John traveled to Kent to their annual hop picking job, and on the 27th, they arrived back in London, where Kate checks in on the Mile End casual ward. When she arrived, the superintendent and Kate chatted, and she told him she intended to claim the reward offered for the arrest of the Whitechapel murderer, adding, "I think I know him." Creepy.
Ooh.
Saturday, September 29th, Kate was to travel to Bermondsey to ask her daughter for some money. But then by 8:30 p.m., PC Lewis Frederick Robinson came across a small group outside of 29 Aldgate High Street. He approached and observed Kate, sprawled on the ground, drunk. He helped her to her feet and leaned her against the shutters of the house, but she quickly slumped back down. Robinson summoned PC George Simmons to help, and together they brought Kate to Bishopsgate Police Station to be detained until she sobered up. Her name she gave upon arrival, nothing. Within 20 minutes, she passed out in the cell. She's very, very drunk. Around 1 a.m., Kate was deemed sober enough to leave, and she gave her name and address to the PC in attendance as Mary Ann Kelly of 6 Fashion Street. That is not her name.
That is not her name.
And not her place. Yeah. Now, Kate could have turned right from the station, which would have been the quickest route to her Flower and Deed Street lodging house. But for some reason, she turned left.
Oh, Kate.
Yeah. 3 men who were leaving the Imperial Club in Duke's Place saw Kate in a narrow walkway named Church Passage around 1:35 a.m. They said she was wearing a black bonnet and jacket facing a man with medium build and a fair mustache. She had her hand on his chest in a friendly gesture. One of the 3 was able to describe the man Kate was with as roughly 30 years old, about 5 feet 7 inches, wearing a loose-fitting pepper and salt color loose jacket, a gray peaked cloth cap, and a reddish neckerchief. He categorized the man as a possible sailor, and that was the last time Catherine Eddowes was seen alive.
Oh, no.
PC Edward Watkins was assigned to patrol the area of Mitre Square. At 1:30 a.m., he walked by and things were quiet. 1:30 a.m., okay? But then 1:44 a.m., mere 14 minutes later, Watkins stumbled upon Eddowes' mutilated and disemboweled body. 14 minutes.
14 minutes.
She was lying on her back, her head on a coal hole, and turned towards the left shoulder. Watkins called for assistance from the night watchman at the Kearney and Tongue warehouse, ex-policeman George James Morris. He was sweeping the landings inside the warehouse when Watkins knocked on the door, exclaiming, "For God's sake, mate, come to my assistance." When Morris approached the body with Watkins, he said that he didn't notice anything unusual that evening. And watchman George Clapp, that was based at 5 Mitre Square, and off-duty policeman Richard Purse, who lived at 3 Mitre Square, both later reported they didn't hear anything unusual. So these people were ex-police people. They were like, nope, nothing amiss. Local surgeon George William Sicaria was summoned and arrived at 1:55 a.m., soon followed by police surgeon Frederick Gordon Brown. Note that around 2:55 a.m. that same morning, a fragment of Eddowes' apron was discovered at the bottom of a common stairway on Golston Street, Whitechapel, by PC Alfred Long. It was contaminated with sections of fecal matter, and Long swore that garment was not there when he passed by at 2:20 a.m. Scrawled upon the wall above the apron was a crude chalk graffito, roughly 3/4 of an inch big, stating, "The Jews, Jewes, just like the movie from hell,
Right.
are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." But the anti-Semitic graffiti could have had nothing to do with the apron. Some believe that the message accused either a singular Jewish person or the Jews in general were responsible for the murders, but we'll never know for sure.
Yeah.
Kate's murder seemed to be the most horrific of all. Her face was greatly mutilated. Her eyelids were cut. Her nose was practically cut off. Cuts into her mouth and each side of cheek was cut of the skin and it peeled up, forming a triangular flap about 1.5 inches. There were a total of at least 8 cuts to the face. Her ears were also cut off, and one of the lobes cut off, but her ears were cut. Dr. Brown came to the conclusion that cause of death was hemorrhage from the left common carotid artery. So another slashed throat, and the disfigurement took place after she died. But then her abdomen had been sliced open as well, with her intestines drawn out to a large extent and placed over her right shoulder, which were smeared with some fecal matter. A piece roughly 2 feet was quite detached from the body and placed between the body and the left arm, apparently by design.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Blood was all over the pavement, but her body was quite warm, which means she was only dead for about half an hour, no more. Well, it took 14 minutes, remember?
Yeah, 14 minutes.
Later, the postmortem report indicated her left kidney had been removed along with her uterus. Again, mutilation took less than 14 minutes. Here is a diagram I'm sure you'll love to see.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. He was really mad that he didn't get to do anything on that first girl, so. Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. At the inquest, after character and medical testimonies, it was noted that Kate was attacked in the passageway leading into the courtyard, in which several families were living in cottages that were just mere yards away from where her body was discovered.
That's crazy.
And Coroner Baxter also noted that the windows to the International Working Men's Educational Club were wide open, so Kate and the murderer most likely could hear the patrons singing and dancing clearly.
Ah,
October.
that's like ballsy.
Seriously, he was not afraid of anything.
No. Oh my gosh.
October 1st. The Central News Agency received a postcard that claimed responsibility for the murders of both Stride and Eddowes, describing the murders as a double event, a name that was stuck to this horrendous act through the centuries. The letter was postmarked more than 24 hours after the murders, but police believed the author was a journalist and dismissed as a hoax. However, 2 weeks later, on October 16th, a parcel was received by the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, George Lusk. Inside the package was half a preserved human kidney, along with a letter that has been dubbed the From Hell letter, due to the return address used by the writer, From Hell. Mm-hmm. The author claimed to have fried and ate the missing half of the kidney. The handwriting was significantly different than the postcard. The kidney that was sent was taken to Dr. Thomas something Openshaw at the nearby Royal London Hospital, and it was confirmed it was the left side of a human kidney. And here's the letter. So it reminds you of that movie we watched.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see.
Oh my goodness.
Some historians think this next part is a dramatic recollection on his part. But acting commissioner of the city police, Major Henry Smith, wrote in his memoirs that the kidney matched the missing length from Eddowes' body, and that the forensic examination of Eddowes' body and the section of kidney that was both revealed signs of Bright's disease. So we don't know if that's 100%, but this guy was very sure that that was Eddowes' kidney. So
wow, that's.
Yeah. And we move on to the last of the canonical 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, Mary Jane Kelly, born possibly in 1863. We say this because Mary Kelly's origins are very obscure and undocumented compared to the other 4. Even tougher is Kelly may have fabricated a lot of her early life details, as there are no corroborating documentary evidence, but no evidence to the contrary either. What we do know is, according to Joseph Barnett, the man she had been living with prior to her murder, said that Kelly told him she was born in Limerick, Ireland, around 1863, and that her family moved to Wales when she was a child. Kelly claimed her family as moderately wealthy, and she had 7 brothers and 1 sister. When she was roughly 16 years old, she reportedly married a coal miner named Davies, but he was killed a couple years later in a mining explosion. Mm-hmm. She had no money, and so she relocated to Cardiff and lived with a cousin, even though, again, no documentation can prove this. But at this stage of her life, she started her life in prostitution, possibly introduced to it by her cousin. But there are no South Wales police records that indicate Kelly was arrested for it. Kelly moved to London in 1884, and after a couple odd jobs, she landed work in a high-class brothel in the West End of London. She became one of the brothel's most popular girls and spent money on expensive clothing and hired a carriage. Then in 1885, she lived with a Mrs. Buki near the London Docks North Quay, and apparently they tracked down a French lady asking for a box of expensive dresses that belonged to Kelly. And historians concluded to the concept that Kelly was financially dwindling, slowly making her way to the East End life, and apparently needed to avoid retribution from a procure, aka a pimp. Mm-hmm. So that's where that From Hell movie kind of got that.
Right.
She also began drinking heavily at this point. Later, Kelly moved to Breezers Hill with a Mrs. Carthy from 1885 to 1886, and she thought she moved out because Kelly was to live with a builder. But she later then lived with a man named Morganstone, then later with a mason's plasterer named Joseph Fleming. So she's just moving around with other guys.
Yeah.
1886. Kelly moved to a coolie's lodging house, aka Dawes House, in Thrall Street, Spitalfields, right up against Whitechapel. And in 1887, she met 28-year-old Joseph Barnett. They decided to live together that April. They moved around due to being kicked out from no rent and drunken disorderly conduct. And finally, in 1888, they moved to 13 Miller's Court, a single 12-foot square room with a bed, 3 tables, and a chair.
Oh, that is tiny.
12 feet.
Oh, that's like the size of my alpaca. They have a
Aw.
little shelter that's that.
There
It's
you
12
go.
by 12.
So that's how they lived, with a bed
Wow.
and tables and a fireplace.
Wow.
I don't know how you fit all that in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there was a small tin bath that was stored beneath the bed. Kelly lost her key at one point, so she would bolt and unbolt the door from outside by putting a hand through a broken window beside the door.
Oh, that's like in the Doss house
Yes, they
thing.
got
Yeah.
that. Kelly's friend and neighbor, Lizzie Albrook, reported that Kelly really missed her life in Ireland and wished to return to where her people lived. When Kelly was drunk, she would be heard singing Irish songs, but also very quarrelsome, even abusive to those around her, which earned her the nickname Dark Mary. By July of 1888, Barnett was fired as a fish porter for theft, so Kelly resorted to prostitution to make ends meet. Barnett claims she began to allow other prostitutes to sleep in their room on cold, bitter nights. October 30th, Barnett left the lodging because Kelly and him got into a fight about sharing a room with a prostitute he knew only as Julia. Barnett did visit Kelly on a daily basis and occasionally gave her money. Her landlord in the end, John McCarthy, described Kelly as being an excellent scholar and an artist of no mean degree. However, Barnett claimed Kelly would ask him to read newspaper reports of the Whitechapel murders to her, suggesting she might have been illiterate. Kelly had been reported to having blonde or red hair and blue eyes. She stood roughly 5'7" and was described by Detective Walter Dew as quite attractive and that she was a pretty, buxom girl. She always wore a clean white apron, but never a hat. The Daily Telegraph of November 10th, 1888 described her as tall, slim, fair, of fresh complexion, and of attractive appearance.
Heather Graham.
There you go. See all the correlations with that. So Barnett visited Kelly for the first time on November 8th between 7 and 8 p.m. She was with a friend named Maria Harvey, and then another friend visited named Lizzie Albrook. Harvey and Barnett left at the same time. Lizzie recollected that Kelly was sober, and one of the last things she said to her was, "Whatever you do, don't you do wrong and turn out as I have." She was very regretful. Early that evening, Kelly went to have one drink with a woman named Elizabeth Foster at the 10 Bells Public House. But then later, she was seen drinking with a couple people at the Horn of Plenty Pub at Dorset Street. Mary Ann Cox, who also resided at Miller's Court, reported seeing Kelly coming home drunk and in the company of a stout, ginger-haired man, roughly 36 years old, at 11:45 p.m. He was wearing a black felt bowler hat, donned a thick mustache, had a blotchy face, and was carrying a can of beer. Cox and Kelly bid each other goodnight, and Kelly added, "I am going to have a song," and as she entered her room with the man, who closed the door, and Cox returned to her room. Kelly could be heard singing the song "A Violet from Mother's Grave." Cox left at midnight and could hear Kelly still singing. And at 1 a.m. when she returned, she could still hear Kelly singing.
That's long.
Yes. Elizabeth Prater, the resident directly above Kelly, said later that she didn't hear any more singing when she went to bed at 1:30 a.m. At roughly 2 a.m., unemployed laborer George Hutchinson, who happened to know Mary Kelly, claimed to see her on Flower and Dean Street. Kelly approached him and asked for a loan of 6 pence, but Hutchinson said he was broke. Then he watched Kelly walk towards Thrall Street, where a man approached her that he recollected was of Jewish appearance, aged 34 or 35. Hutchinson thought the man was suspicious because of how affluent the man looked and basically didn't fit into that part of the world. But Kelly seemed to know him. When Hutchinson passed by the two walking, he grew more suspicious because a man seemed to make an effort to disguise his features by hiding his head down with his hat over his eyes. Hutchinson overheard Kelly complaining about losing her handkerchief, but the man she was with provided her with a red one of his own. Then Kelly told the man, "All right, my dear, come along. You will be comfortable." They kissed and both of them walked into 13 Miller's Court. Hutchinson claimed he didn't see any lights go on or hear anything. Hutchinson's statement can be partly corroborated by laundress Sarah Lewis, who was walking towards the courtyard around 2:30 a.m. to spend the night with friends at 2 Miller's Court. She claimed she saw a few people standing near the Britannia pub, including a well-dressed young man with a dark mustache talking to a woman, and both were intoxicated. She also mentioned a poorly dressed and hatless young woman who stood nearby. Lewis then saw a stout-looking and not very tall man standing at the entrance of the courtyard watching the scene in the entranceway. Then, when she passed the stout man, she saw a man in the company of a very drunk woman further up the courtyard. Lewis was adamant about the time because of the chiming of the Spitalfields church clock. So we're just trying to make sure you all see how everything is like.
Right. What amazes me is just how many people there are
in this area.
In this area, but like at all hours of the night.
Oh,
and
yeah,
like,
they're all out.
Nobody ever sees anything, and it's just
ever. It's creepy.
I don't
right?
understand how that's the case. I mean, maybe people are just like, I saw nothing, and they may have heard it. They may have like seen a little bit of it, but they don't want to be associated with it.
Because remember, this was a shady time, so there were other murders and things going on in this area, but they were just so used to it. Isn't that sad?
Yeah. Oh.
Back to Marianne Cox. She left her room around 1 a.m. and returned home about 3 a.m. She did not recall seeing a light or hearing anything from Kelly's room when she returned, but she did recollect hearing someone leave the residence at roughly 5:45 a.m. November 9th, 1888. Landlord John McCarthy sent his assistant, ex-soldier Thomas Bowyer, to collect rent from the building. Kelly was way behind on rent, about 6 weeks, which calculated to 29 shillings. Around 10:45 a.m., Boyer, I'm going to say Boyer, sorry.
Okay.
It's Bowyer. What do you think?
Bower? Bowyer. Bowyer. There's a Y. That Y is throwing me off.
Yeah, right? Bowyer, sure.
Bowyer.
Knocked at Kelly's door with no response. That's what I did.
Yep.
When he tried to turn the handle, the door was locked. He peeped through the keyhole but didn't see anyone. From that window that Kelly would open her door, Bowyer peered inside the room after pushing the belongings and clothing around and discovered Kelly's extensive mutilated corpse lying on the bed. Bowyer ran and told McCarthy, who had to see it for himself. Afterwards, he instructed Bowyer to fetch the Commercial Street Police. Once he got there, he stammered, "Another one. Jack the Ripper. Awful. McCarthy sent me." Inspector Walter Beck went back to Miller's Court with Bowyer and immediately requested police surgeon George Phillips again. He also arranged the news to be reported to Scotland Yard and requested bloodhounds to assist at the scene. The East End got news quickly about another Ripper victim, and the crowd that gathered at the end of Dorset Street grew to over 1,000 people, with many frustrated about the Ripper still on the loose. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
1,000.
1,000.
At 1:30 p.m., Superintendent Thomas Arnold from the Whitechapel's H Division ordered the room to be broken in at 1:30 p.m. once he realized the bloodhounds were useless to track the murderer. A huge fire was blazing in the grate, apparently fueled with women's clothing. The assumption was the killer burned Kelly's clothes to provide more light, since there was only a small candle to light the entire room. More about Kelly's corpse soon. Once official photographs were taken, Kelly's body was moved to the mortuary in Shoreditch, where Joseph Barnett visited to formally identify her body. The only way to recognize it was by the ear and the eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, you're going to see a picture.
Oh my gosh.
The other witness to identify the body was John McCarthy. Look at this. This is a real photo, which I'm baffled by.
Oh man. Oh, that's so sad. You guys, why would how do people do that?
No, this man was insane. Yeah, her body's so as I mentioned in that first part of this, like there are photos on Wikipedia and all over the web of this.
Don't let your children see this.
Yeah, it's
This is
insane
like,
how bad this is. So Mary Kelly's body was the worst of all.
There's nothing left of her.
No. No.
Oh my gosh.
Due to most likely having more time with the body than the others, Mary Kelly's corpse was the most mutilated of them all. The autopsy took roughly 2.5 hours to complete. Thomas Bond and George Phillips examined Kelly's body and timed her death to roughly 12 hours before the autopsy. Phillips estimated that the extensive mutilations would have taken at least 2 hours to perform, and Bond noted rigor mortis set in as they were examining the body, so death occurred between 2 and 8 a.m. To sum up the post-mortem state crime scene, Kelly was on her back lying naked in the middle of the bed. Her arm was close to the body and forearm flexed at a right angle and lying across what was left of her abdomen, and the right arm bent above her head, fingers clenched as if in a celebratory pose. Her legs were wide apart. The whole of the surface of the abdomen and thighs were removed and the abdominal cavity emptied of its viscera. Breasts were cut off, arms mutilated by several jagged wounds, and face was hacked beyond recognition. The tissues around her neck were severed down to the bone. Her uterus and kidneys with one breast were found under the head, the other breast by the right foot, the liver between her feet, the intestines by the right side, and her spleen by the left side of the body. The flaps removed from the abdomen and thighs were on the table. Blood saturated the bed, and then on the floor was a 2 feet square area of blood. Right where Kelly's neck in position to the wall was marked with blood. The left calf had a long gash through skin and tissues to the deep muscles. You know what? We didn't do a listener discretion on this one.
Listener discretion be advised.
I'm sorry. I just thought about it. We'll mark it on them.
Yeah. We'll insert it in the front. Yeah.
But, this is more gruesome than the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Nicole.
Similar to the other victims, Phillips believed that Kelly was killed by a slash to the throat and then mutilations were performed afterwards. The knife used was about 1 inch wide and at least 6 inches long, and Bond believed the murderer had no medical training or knowledge. He wrote, in each case, the mutilation was inflicted by a person who had no scientific nor anatomical knowledge. In my opinion, he does not even possess the technical knowledge of a butcher or horse slaughterer or a person accustomed to cut up dead animals. My problem with this is that in the previous cases, the killer was able to find the kidneys, something not easy to locate under a thin membrane in the dark, in less than 15 minutes.
Right?
I think he just went to town on Mary Kelly because he wasn't trapped outside in a dark alley and went into a frenzy. But who knows? This guy, I really think he has anatomical knowledge. How do you find a uterus in that short of time?
Yeah, he definitely does. I think he just was able to take his time.
Yes, and do whatever he wanted to with his body. Yeah.
In some weird, sick way. I mean, this is all like art for him.
Yeah.
It's weird.
While investigating Kelly's murder on November 10th, Bond wrote an official report that linked Kelly's murder with Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, and Catherine Eddowes. He also provided an offender profile of the murderer. He suggested that the perpetrator was a solitary, eccentric individual who was subject to periodic attacks of homicidal and erotic mania, and who had been in an extreme state of satyriasis or hypersexuality, as he mutilated Kelly and the previous 4 victims. Police were desperate that on the same day, the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Charles Warren, issued a pardon for any accomplice not being a person who contrived or actually committed to the murder, who shall give it such information and evidence as shall lead to the discovery and conviction of the person or persons who committed the murder of Mary Jane Kelly. Sadly, no one came forth or was charged with any of the murders. After 6 months, no other murders took place with a similar modus operandi, and attention on Jack the Ripper declined. People assumed Mary Kelly was the last victim due to the murder either dying, being imprisoned, being institutionalized, or emigration. And that's where I'm going to leave you guys, because we're now going on to suspects in part 3.
Wow. That was a rough one.
I told you.
Oh my god.
This is insane true crime.
Yeah.
Like, I knew, like, you knew about Jack the Ripper. Everybody knows
about him. Everybody cares about him.
The details, holy crap.
Yeah. Diving, like really deep diving into the details of it just like really brings a whole new fresh perspective on the whole thing.
Agreed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Woo. That was a lot to get into.
Yeah.
If I wasn't tired before the podcast, man, that is so much, Nicole.
It's heavy, I know.
It's fascinating, but I can't wait to get into the theories and stuff next week. That's going to be so fascinating.
Yeah.
If you guys are fascinated by this, we want to know. You can email us at theominousstitch@gmail.com. You can also comment on any of our social media pages and let us know what you think about Jack the Ripper. Let us know any theories you have about it.
Have you ever been there?
Have you been to Whitechapel?
My
Have you
hubs
seen
did.
any of this? Oh
He
yeah.
runs everything though. He's like, you know, what my worst part of visiting England was because he went with his high school band, and I was like, what? He's like the Jack the Ripper tour. I was like, why? He said because everything's gone, like it's all modernized now, so it's just like you walk around and
this is
where it was, but it's
happened.
like this big industrial building, you know. And I
Yeah.
was like, I get that, but still, that's creepy to me.
Yeah, it's still creepy. I mean, that's
Yeah.
still like hallowed ground. Something like
Yes.
very insanely tragic happened there, and I'm sure there's hauntings.
Yes, which I
mean,
will talk about.
Anytime
in part 3.
you have like a big tragic event like this, there's got to be hauntings.
Yeah.
there's got to be
residual at least.
Yeah.
because that was really brutal.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
so insane.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Let me get back into what we got to do here. So
Yeah.
all the social medias, comment on them all. Go say
Comment on them all.
spam us with your comments and let us know what you think about the Jack the Ripper murders. I mean, it's a lot. I feel so deeply for these women, and yes, I have to keep my hands busy because it's like there's just so much.
I do that too if I weren't talking.
And you guys, you have no idea. I'm like, I've been doing the same thing over and over again because I can't count. Because I'm trying
You have to do a project right now that doesn't allow that. You have to just do something mindless. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
exactly. No, it's so funny. I have all this yarn at my feet because I keep counting wrong.
I just look at the bottom now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what did I say? Email us at theominoussitch@gmail.com. Comment on all our social medias.
Become a patron.
Become a patron. You can go over to podbean.com and get today's show notes or any show notes from any previous episodes that you want to just kind of review what we talked about and see what's going on. And click on that little red button in the upper right-hand corner that says Become a Patron today. We love our patrons. It is because of them that we were able to continue to do this. So if you want more of us, please consider becoming a patron.
Yay.
We love you guys. We love our Stitchers, and we love being able to connect with you. We send you stuff. We give you shout outs. There is patron exclusive content that comes your way. And we will be giving some more Jack the Ripper on the patron thing. So if you want to hear the conclusion of all of this, become a patron and we'll get there. Okay, so we have one more thing we need to do for this podcast.
Oh, one more thing.
One more thing. It's movie time.
This week's movie review, Jack's Back.
Jack's back.
Released in 1988, IMDb rating of 5.8 stars, and the synopsis. A serial killer in Los Angeles celebrates Jack the Ripper's 100th birthday by committing similar murders, and only one has a chance of stopping him. Hey, James Spader. So, as I mentioned,
Oh, man.
you know how bad like all the Jack the Ripper movies are out there? So I chose some winners. So this one is on Tubi, so you can watch it for free. Very young James Spader.
Yeah, this is all about like James Spader when he was young. You're like, ooh, look at this.
Yeah, so this movie, I'm sure you've never seen it because I had never even heard of it. He's got a twin, and it's James Spader. And
Yeah, that was funny because like, so James Spader, who you like, they show him off. He's this hot doctor.
yeah, young
and
doctor.
He's
He's trying to help the underserved people in LA.
yeah, and he's like trying to be all humble, but he's like obviously rock star or whatever, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then he dies, and I'm like, oh, no more James Spader. And then he wakes up, and you're like,
Oh, what?
what? How is it? Oh, he's his own twin. Got it.
Which we never knew until he wakes up.
I
And you're
know.
like, what?
Oh, that was funny.
But yeah, his twin has basically a clairvoyant dream of seeing his twin brother being murdered.
Mm-hmm.
So then it basically launches into him trying to solve his murder. But at the same time, this was so weird to me, like the murder had nothing to do really with the Jack the Ripper murders in a way, except that he was watching him. Is that right? Watching the murder go down, or like convinced this guy to, I don't know. The way they panned out at the end of all this just like confused me.
What do you mean?
So like, so we know that his brother was murdered by another doctor because this young doctor.
So all right, they Let's go.
Rewind.
So Dr. Spader.
There you
We'll do
go.
it that way.
Okay.
So Dr. Spader, I think his name was Ron or John. John. Okay. John. So Dr. John Spader, they work in a free clinic. So it's him. It's this other like big, awkward, like bulky dude doctor. And then they have a boss. And then there's another chick doctor that works there. Okay. So they're in the clinic. And the boss doctor gets all mad at James Spader because he was late because James Spader was doing an interview on TV or whatever, being rock star.
Yeah.
Even though he's still a med student working at this clinic, whatever. But the main doctor is like, you're late, you're fired. He's like, I'm not fired. And he's like, okay, you're not fired. Whatever. So do you like my recap?
I love it.
And then the mean doctor who runs the clinic, there's a woman who comes out and he's like, you're 2 weeks late. I can't give you an abortion. And she's like, tell that to my pimp. And so we find out that she's a prostitute. We know the next murder because there have been a series of copycat murders of Jack the Ripper. And so we know that the next person that he's supposed to murder is a pregnant prostitute. So here's our pregnant prostitute, right? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know why James goes to that woman's house.
Oh, he thought she was beautiful. I think he just thought she was really pretty.
Oh, so he wanted to go. You think that's what it was? They were trying to indicate to us that maybe he's going to go murder her. Because like that was the vibe I was getting. Yeah, that because he was supposed to be the Jack the Ripper guy.
He was Jack the Ripper, yeah.
Right. So anyway, so he goes to the house, but before so there's a knock at the prostitute's door, and it's the big hunky awkward doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm here to give you what you need. And she's like, really? Where are we going to do it? Right here. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. You don't perform abortions in somebody's
bed.
No. Oh my gosh, that was so upsetting. Weird. It was so weird. Oh, but anyway, so the big hunky doctor, right? So the big hunky doctor goes in there and you're like, oh no, he's the Jack the Ripper, the murderer. He's the one that's doing it all because he goes in and he's like, I'm going to take care of you and whatever. So you think, oh, he's the one that does it. And then he leaves when James Spader, Dr. Spader, pulls up. And so Dr. Spader goes in there and he sees the woman dead.
Right.
And so he's like, oh no, the big hunky doctor is the one that's doing all the killing, right?
Right.
And so he runs across the hall and he's like, call 911, this woman's dead, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So the neighbor calls 911. And then the big hunky doctor guy comes back in and he's like, I just went to go get her medicine. I gave her abortion. That's all. I didn't kill her, blah, blah, blah. But then he freaks out and James Spader chases him down instead of going to the cops.
Right?
Like, I would have just gone to the cops. Because you know where this guy lives. Yes. You know who he is. It's not like a mystery. That was so dumb. But he chases him down. And his little beetle. And the guy has a big truck. And he's chasing him down in this little beetle. I'm like, no, that's not... Whatever. So then James Spader kind of gives up the chase somehow. And then he decides to call the cops and he's like, I know who the Jack the Ripper murderer is.
Yeah.
And he's about to say it. And then the guy slams the phone down because he follows him back. And then he's like, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. But then he winds up killing James Spader.
Yeah, because he didn't want him to like tell who it was. But
he didn't want to go to jail for a murder that he didn't commit. So he commits a different one. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
It's so bad.
So anyway, big hunky doctor kills Spader.
Yeah.
And then so as Spader is hanging and dying, whatever, and then the cops come, whatever, and then twin Spader wakes up.
Yes.
And you're like,
what?
Was he dreaming his own death? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
And then you find out, no, he's just his identical twin.
And he's like the cool
lives
one.
Across the street.
Even though he
murders.
like owns a shoe
He's a manager at a shoe store.
But he acts like he's like the coolest man in the world.
Right. Because when he was young, he was a punk and he got like in trouble or whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it was dumb. So anyway, so cool Spader goes and
talks to the cops.
Yeah, he runs across the street because I guess he lives across the street from where the murder was, where his brother was murdered.
Yeah.
And then my favorite thing, he runs to the coroner's like to the hearse or whatever and like lifts up the sheet.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
They're like, hey, and he's like, it's okay.
I can do this.
Yeah, it's my brother. Like, what? No, that's not how any of that works.
There's nobody around to stop him.
It's so dumb.
Yeah.
And then anyway, so the cops take him in and he think he's suspicious because he has like this bad rap. And then there's a psychologist or psychiatrist or psychologist, hypnotherapist.
Yes, something.
Whatever.
Hypnopsychologist.
So he comes and the cops have been working with him trying to get into the psychology of the Jack the Ripper guy. And then so he's like, oh, sometimes twins have this weird connection and you know, blah blah blah. So he hypnotizes him and then he's like fakes dies and he kind of takes on they do that so that he can see the person's face that strangled his brother. But in the process, he like is acting out like he's getting all strangled. Remember that? And he's in the chair.
Yes. Like I was like, is he actually dying? What is happening?
It was funny. I'm like, you're fine. You can breathe.
Yeah.
There's nothing around your throat. But it was funny. And then
synopsis is awesome.
Thank you. I'm like way into this right now. I like my coffee's finally kicking in, I think. So anyway, fake James Spader then goes on this quest.
Fake James Spader.
Fake, I don't know.
The twin.
Yeah. James Spader twin.
Yeah.
He goes on this quest to figure out who this guy was, and then somehow he gets wrapped up with the girl doctor.
Oh, he was like
the girl doctor.
Lovey eyes.
Oh my gosh, the girl doctor was enamored with Dr. Spader.
Yeah. He wanted to date her. She wanted to date him. And he was like, yeah.
Yeah. And then, but anyway, so now she's enamored with Bad Spader.
Twinsy, because they look exactly the same, because it's the same
guy.
person.
And it's so weird because
so
it's like definitely
1980s.
80s. Like the girl has no brain and just falls for
But she's a doctor.
dude. I know.
I'm so
it's
mad.
So
Yeah.
Gross. Ew, I just licked my microphone. Oh man. So yeah, so she gets all lovey-eyed and like helps him, and then he eventually puts 1 and 2 together and figures out that it was the awkward doctor guy that killed his brother.
Right.
And so he gets into a fight and the fight is so stupid. Like the fights are not real fights. They're so
bad.
weird. But awkward doctor guy in the middle of this keeps being really weird and suspicious the whole time. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. He keeps doing weird things.
It's like hiding. He sees him in the clinic, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And then the clinic owner, who's, I forget what his name was, but Sydney or something. I don't know.
Sydney Tannerson.
Dr. Tannerson. So Dr. Tannerson finds him at the clinic. He's like, what are you doing here? And then he very creepily says, you do good work.
Yeah.
Right? Which makes sense later, but like it's like, oh my gosh, it's so weird. You do good work.
I love that you remembered all of
That was so creepy. It stuck out to me so bad. I was just like, ugh, why? And then later you find out why.
Yeah.
But anyway, so awkward dumb fight that isn't really a fight because neither of them are stage trained in fighting. I don't know.
Didn't he get a gun? Was it before or after he gets the gun with
so
the bullets?
he has a gun, but James Spader somehow like knocks it out of his hand or whatever. I don't know. It makes no sense.
This is so silly.
But anyway, so the cops come and arrest the guy, and then they think, woohoo, we've captured the Jack the Ripper killer guy. We got everything. Yay, we're good. Woohoo. And everything's good and kumbaya. But the movie doesn't end. It keeps going.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, dang it, there's more. What is going on?
Why is it this
Why
over?
is this movie not ending? And then Twin Spader has another nightmare, and then he goes to, this is my favorite scene.
Oh, right.
He goes to the psychiatrist's house, and the psychiatrist lives with his mother. And the psychiatrist like answers the door, and he's like, Doc, I have to talk to you. And the doctor's mom comes down the stairs. He's like, go back to bed, mother.
Which at that point I thought he was the killer.
I thought he was the killer too, right?
Because he was acting real sus.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a gun.
Yes, because like this is the scene. So they go into his office, and then he's like, why are you here? And he's like, I don't think I'm still having the nightmares. And he's like, you know why you're still having the nightmares? While he's like reaching for the gun.
Yeah,
Like, are you the killer? Like, what are you
That's
doing?
what made me think too. I was like,
so I'm like, maybe the psychiatrist thinks that he's the killer.
Yeah, I think so too.
And then he's like, Doc, you got to hypnotize me again. And he's like, okay. And he puts the gun down and pulls out the light to hypnotize him. You're just like, what? Oh, it's so dumb. So he hypnotizes him again. And I don't remember what happens during that.
He's able to see
he sees the shoe. Right? He goes back to work and he sees the shoe and he sees the footprint.
And he's a shoe manager.
Yeah. And then he realizes based on the shoe that's not.
The big guy was not the killer.
The big guy
and
was
he
not
sees
the killer.
the face of Jack the Ripper watching.
Yes.
And it happens to be Dr. Tannerson.
So then, and he's like, oh, he's going to go after the female doctor.
Yeah. I don't know how he pieced that together, but okay.
He spied on the female doctor before.
That's right. And someone was peeking out at her window.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so they go to so he goes to the female doctor's house, but before he gets there, Dr. Tannerson is already there trying to kill her. And he's doing the old movie trope of moving very slowly, holding a knife incredibly awkwardly while she's like running through her house, which has all these doors, but it doesn't matter. You close the door, there's another way to go around. And she isn't locking him into anything. She's full on running, trying to get through things. And he's just walking very leisurely and is able to catch her. Right. Yeah. We all know how that works. So that's what was happening. And then he like pushes her down and she's like, ah, and she can't stand up. I'm like, whatever. This is totally 80s.
Very 80s.
Dumb. She can't fight back because she's a poor, feeble woman. And then James Spader comes to the rescue.
He jumps through the window. Out of all things, he jumps through the window, breaking the window.
Yeah.
And somehow managed to jump on him.
Yeah. That's so dumb.
It's so bad.
And then the cops come and then,
Oh, yeah. Kumbaya. So they're fighting and somehow James Spader twin gets on top of him and is able to stab the guy. And then police come and see him on top and he's like this. And
and then he gets arrested again.
Instantly. But then they realize that he's not the killer and because the girl's like goes to him. The girl
goes to him and hugs him.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay.
Maybe we got it wrong.
Oh my gosh.
So there's the movie.
Good job, Angela.
My recap is so much more fun than the movie. So that's all you have to do is listen to this recap.
She got some good details in there that I didn't catch. So that's great. Perfect.
So yeah. So did my synopsis like change your rating of the movie? Now it's more fun.
No, it's the same.
Yeah. How many stitches would you give it, Nicole?
Oh my gosh. 2 maybe?
Yeah.
2.5.
I think probably Nicole's most favorite thing and why it gets a 2.5 rating is the use of the saxophone.
Oh my God. 1980s cheesy saxophone. Yeah, that was amazing. That's all. That's why it's not 0. Yeah.
Oh, so
it was
good.
like that trope of the 1980s like murder mystery saxophone.
Yeah, exactly.
It made me think of, for some reason, Naked Gun.
Oh,
because I love those movies. So anyway,
so good.
2. What about you?
2.
How many stitches?
I think my synopsis changed my rating a little bit more because it was like I was watching it and I was just like because it's just stereotype upon stereotype and it's just nothing's really original in this.
No.
And you're like, okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
And so but 2 is good. 2 is fair.
Okay.
2 is fair.
2.
Yeah.
Go watch it on Tubi if you want, or just listen to Angela's synopsis because that was pretty amazing. I love that. That was really good.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, this is a long episode. It is time to end this one. And then we will catch you guys back up for the finale of our 3-parter of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
So until next time, we'll see you, Stitchers.
See you, Stitchers.